Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. My name is Zaini. Today I'm presenting the Malaysia Association of Energy Services Companies or MAESCO. Thank you to the IGEM 2020 organizer for inviting MAESCO to talk about one topic today. Today I would like to talk about sustainable energy management practices to achieve business and sustainability goals. I'll talk about this topic in by focusing on three major elements. Basically, first, how companies practice sustainability in their organizations, and secondly, the strategy on how to implement sustainable energy management practices in their companies, and then lastly, how to move forward. If you talk about sustainability, we cannot avoid from referring to these documents. We call it SDG. This was launched in 2015, consists of 17 goals. We call it Sustainable Development Goals. For this particular topic, the focus will be on this goals number 12, which is about responsible consumption and production. And this goal number 12, basically what is expected. So by 2030, we're supposed to achieve sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources. And on top of that, the second one, basically, what's stated in this particular goals number 12 basically is companies are encouraged, especially large companies or large users, to adopt sustainable practices into their business, and they also need to comply to certain reporting requirements. So globally, companies, sustainability has become something. Energy and sustainability is something become more important nowadays. It's become more and more important because to maintain the growth economically, socially, in terms of business standings, and also they must show that they are contributing to the sustainability of the environment as well. That's why sustainability has become one of the key measures in looking into companies' performance nowadays, not just purely business profitability in terms of monetary benefits. That's why for companies, if you look at how they approach sustainability, they always involve basically three stages. The first stage, normally they will do the minimum. Minimum is that they start to comply to the requirement of the law or requirement of the market. That's why they have to comply. At this stage, normally they just do the minimum, but they don't look this energy sustainability as part of the sustainability strategic matters in their company. And then when they started to have seen or enjoyed benefit from this compliance, minimum compliance, they started to look into how they become more efficient in terms of sustainability. Normally they go to the next stage. At this stage, normally the second stage, they started to look at more strategic about sustainability. At this point, they often look at how they can find way these sustainability activities can contribute directly to their business profitability. And by doing that, they started to look into somebody dedicated to look into the sustainability issue in their company. And at this stage, often they started to appoint an officer, or they call it sustainable officer, to look into sustainability issue in the company. And then the last stage, the mature stage, innovation. This is where they started to integrate the sustainability practices into their business activities, as a part of the core business activities, and not just as a support service. That's why this one also often driven by market, for long-term business performance and also for long-term profitability. And the same time, they also help, the company also help the global community to address the issue of society, climate change, and all that. But bear in mind, in setting up the sustainability goals in any company, there are few elements, often, common to be looked into. They call it rules, the rules of setting up the goals. And I would like to highlight two elements here. The first element to be highlighted here, basically, the first part is the top management must be committed. Senior management must be committed. They must show they wanted to do it. They want to do it. If not, it's difficult to the operation to take up. And then the second part, in these rules of sustainability, when they're setting up the goals, they must ensure that the sustainability practices will become their business activity, not just support activity. Okay, that's two elements. And what actually So at MAESCO, we look at sustainability from the energy point of view. From energy point of view, means that how we manage our energy in sustainable manner. That's why in sustainable energy management, basically what's that? What's sustainable energy management? Sustainable energy management basically is a process of monitoring, controlling, and conserving your energy in the operations, day-to-day operation. How they do it? It's not that difficult. They have to monitor, do some data collection, and then from there they monitor the performance, and then same time they start to look into their into ways on how they can improve their performance or energy cost savings measures, and then they find a way how they can take actions, how they can deploy the resources, the budget, the people on how to achieve their targets, for them to improve their performance. That's why for MAESCO, we look at sustainable energy management in a holistic way. If you look here, this is a very simple diagram here. Everything must come from the top. So there must be a policy decision, from the top of the company organizations. And then once they got a commitment from the policy decisions, they have to find a way how to implement. They come with the implementation strategies here. This is very, very interesting. What often being seen in the practice, basically, this the focus is often more on the energy efficient technologies, how they can save energy through some technologies, which is not wrong, because by doing this, it's either using the low cost measure or high cost measure, which require investment. Sometimes you can get the saving, you can get improvement directly. But if you don't have another part of this, you don't have the management element of that, you may not be able to sustain that performance. That's why for MAESCO, in energy management or sustainable energy management, we look into the holistic way, which is must cover the adoption of efficient technologies, and also at the same time, concurrently, you must look into the management part of the energy as well. So for the management part, we need to look into how you do it, in following certain standard or protocol. That's why we always refer to, for us, we often refer to the global standard, which is ISO 50001 about energy management system. That's why by having this technology approach and this management approach, the result is that basically you achieve your saving that you intend to achieve. Same time, you can sustain the energy performance for cost reductions. So there has to be two elements concurrently. Otherwise, if you, for example, if you install efficient chiller, the chiller cannot sustain the performance by itself. It must be maintained, to achieve the performance. So that the chiller can achieve the efficient performance throughout its lifetime. That's what I mean by having this management into the holistic approach for sustainable energy management. That's why globally we can see, ISO 2001 has been quickly adopted by companies. For example, in this study here, from 2011 to 2015, from 500 companies became almost 12,000 companies adopting ISO 2001. Means that adopting doing energy management through a proper system, reference standard, proven workable. That's why in the study in Europe here, all right, average savings, for companies that for 42 companies, being studied, average saving per year is about 26%. It's a lot of money there. That's why in the US, for example, based on study here, 75 companies being studied, average saving per year in terms of monetary benefits is about 1.2 million US dollar per year. So it shows that adoption of a systematic approach is very, very workable for company to reduce energy costs. That's why this is basically the common framework of ISO for management system. That's why for energy, it's nothing new. If you look here, there is here commitment. The top management must be committed, okay, and then they must have a policy, and then from there, this is the different compared to other standards. For energy, you have to do a proper energy planning. So energy planning, proper planning means that they have to set targets here, all right, and then they have to set the performance indicator. They must set the proper baseline, and they must come with the action plan to achieve these so-called targets. And then they operate the system, and this is then come to the performance evaluations. And this performance evaluation, what they do, they look into the system whether people follow this SOP or not. Same time, they also look into the energy performance. Have they improved in terms of energy performance or not? Means that have they saved energy according to the target or not? and then from there, this input will be given to the top management to review, and then for them to keep giving the support. And this after that, that continue. This continue. Alright. This is a common approach for any ISO standards. Management system in ISO. That's why for us, we don't reinvent the wheel. That's why for sustainable energy management, you need to follow certain recognized standard. In this particular case, we often refer to ISO 2001. But for ASEAN, for example, we have the ASEAN Energy Management System. Alright, they have that's why. But if you look at any other guideline or standard, they often come to the same framework, same structure. They will have the top management commitment, they will have the policy requirement, and they have the planning for the energy, and then they have to operate the system, and they have to monitor the performance, and then finally they must bring back to the top management to to look into the performance. That's why one thing what I can observe, for companies that have been successfully doing energy management to manage the energy sustainably, basically they have a few common elements. The first element, basically, they have a very broad awareness among the employees throughout the company. From the top to the bottom, from top management to the support staff. And secondly, they have a long-term plan. They have a medium, short, long-term plan. They have all the plan, and they have the targets for each term to be achieved. Alright, this is it. And then thirdly, normally they have a champion. They have a champion who run the show, who run the system, who operate the system, who drive the system to make sure it works. This is often, when it comes to energy management, we often to refer this champion, often they call it energy manager. Energy manager, okay, which is playing the key role. And then, at the same time, they make sure all data collected related to energy, they will analyze. They analyze it, and then they use it to manage it, to manage their energy performance. They monitor the consumption every month, they monitor the performance every month, they do something about it. They don't just let it, after 1 year, something like 1 year reporting. And then the third one, the last one, so the fifth one, what they do, they integrate energy management practices into their business operations. Meaning that everyone look into energy as a part of business activity, not just a works of the engineers or work of the facility people. Okay? Because you know why this is important? Because in the energy management system, there are a lot of people involved. If you look here, the ecosystem here, alright, in the system itself, even from the development of the system until the implementation of the system, there are a lot of people here, from the top management to the support staff here. They have the CEOs, they got the CFOs, they have the procurement, they have the finance, they have the accountants, they have the facility engineer, the production engineering, all that. But all that, all them, they must follow certain guide or certain standard, right? That's why we always, if they have common way of doing things, if they refer to certain standard to do that, they will get the result. Otherwise, every of them here, they look energy from different perspective, and often being seen, often being looked, energy often the work of the engineers or facilities. The energy is not, not everyone feeling energy is their responsibilities. But if you ask themselves, if I ask you, if any of you here are not using energy in the company, the difference is that everyone must play their role. That's why the role often being defined properly in the systematic approach. Okay, so I think I'm coming to the last part of my sharing today on this topic. That's why for the way forward, what's the way forward? Basically, for companies, for organizations, they need to look energy management, look at it as a part of the strategic matters, not just a support matters. Strategic matters. If you don't, they look energy as a project base. After a certain period, then no one will look into that. That's why it's very important to see energy management as a part of the strategic business activity, not just support matters. And last one, energy management must be seen as one of the integrated element in the corporate sustainability practices, not just projects. So basically, by having sustainability management practices, what you can achieve, basically, you have the positive impact to your profitability. You give you positive impact to your care to the nature, to the environment directly, because every kilowatt hour you save, means that certain kilowatt hour CO2 emission can be avoided. And then finally, of course, show that a company, you are also care about the society as well. in terms of protecting the environment, also protecting the nature. With that, thanks again to IGEM 2020 for inviting MAESCO to share this, and thanks again for listening. And I wish all of us to stay safe and then to stay vigilant, because COVID-19 is still out there. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera.